Good evening, guys. Good evening, guys. I had a back testing and I saw some beautiful setup or trades that we missed already on New Zealand card. I don't know if any one of us has been able to go through it. A very beautiful trend continuation. Looking at it, I felt like it's always good when we review something like this and look at how we mix it, also taking advantage of the recent market movement. So looking at New Zealand card, he has been giving this cool 4 hours market trend to the upside. 4 hours market trend, and he has continued correction impulse. We had a very good one towards the end of last week. And now, what do we do? How do we take advantage of this? Then I'll pull up to mine. So looking at the weekly time frame, I think that was why we missed that movement. The market looks bearish, looking at the weekly time frame, bearish. And then looking at it, the market has not really given us a major shift to the upside if you are looking at this particular height here, because if you're even using our trend, it's obvious that this market still is downtrend movement. And if you're not looking at that buy, that means the buy we had now is just the internal structure, because the market has not really given us a clear shift to the upside. So if you are taking any buy position on this guy, that means we should also focus on 4 or daily high, so that even though the market make any funny move, we are still within that particular range which the market is moving. Let's go to daily time frame. So if we check on the daily time frame, this is the height we have on that weekly time frame. That level is going to be our profit target. So we are not moving outside that particular range. So all this level we had there is the correction mode we had on that particular 4 hours time frame. And if you are doing anything within that range, if you are doing anything, it should be within this particular range. Yeah. So on 4 hours time frame, we had a mitigation level here last week, which is this particular will be here last week. And since we had this already on 4 hours time frame, I'm now looking at taking advantage of this movement. Don't forget that we are having this weekly high here. So in case anything happens, I'm still within this particular high. And don't forget where we are coming from. If you check the real movement we are looking at, the market has been maintaining that same trend here, impulse and correction. So if you are even targeting this immediate high here, it's still very okay, depending on your entry conditions or having a very good lower time frame entries. So looking at this particular movement, then let's look at where we are taking our trade from. So looking at it on 4 hours time frame, the market mitigate this particular OB. Then we had this push to the upside. On the 1 hour time frame, I already have a shift already on the 1 hour time frame to the upside. So that means the 1 hour time frame are now aligned with what we are having on that 4 hours time frame. And because of that, seeing that as change of character already, and I want to take advantage of this 1 hour will be here for a buy continuation. So that means what we are doing now, we are waiting for markets to come and mitigate this particular hobby on the 1 hour time frame. And the buy we are taking, we are targeting this immediate high here. So that means we are not ready to go above this particular, and that's about 177 pips to the upside. So if you are having this here, this 27, though, for those of us who are not comfortable with that stop loss pips, then you can still wait for a lower time frame entry at this price here. Looking at it, it's giving about 1 to 6. If you are using 27 pips, the 27 pips is very high for me. So that by the time I can come into this particular level here, then I see market reaction in buying to this particular high. This particular height here, never forget that that's a weekly high. So we are trading within that particular range. So our target is once market come back and mitigate this 4 hours will be, then we are buying to this particular height here. Then that takes us to USD CHF. For USD CHF, I'm looking at it from the weekly time frame, looking at what happened last week. The USD CHF has also been a downtrend, and for a couple of months now, we've been observing this sell movement on USD CHF. Last week, we have a reaction from this level. My concern is this particular movement we had there did not push to the downside by taking out this particular low. Yeah, by taking out this particular low. But all well and good because the higher time frame is also bearish. And I'm now looking at a level here on the daily and the 4 hours time frame, which on the daily, although the first we already had a bearish pin bar already on that weekly time frame. Now on the daily time frame, the market approach back to this particular daily hobby here. This is a very good hobby. When market moved from this particular level here, I was expecting when market was somewhere here, I was expecting market to push back here to even give us entry that time where the market refused to. But it took market a very long movement for coming back to that end. So now we now have a mitigation on that particular level. And I'm now looking at market still pushing back to the downside for the downtrend to continue. And after having the weekly bearish pin bar, which is reaction from here, the 4 hours time frame gives us a clearer move within this particular range. You can see the 4 hour, we are still observing this particular 4 hour order block. And within that range, we have a very strong impulse movement to the downside, giving us internal structure shifts already on 1 hour to the downside. And comparing these particular impulse movements, look at the candles trying to give us this correction. I think we have a better move on the 1 hour time frame. So I was able to refine this 4 hours will be here to a 1 hour time frame. For those of us that have that good entry conditions, you can choose to pick this particular 4 hours as the zone you are looking at, so that when market gets into this particular 4 hours order block, you want to see market reaction within this hobby. So, but if you check on 1 hour time frame, we have a final 1 hour hobby here, which you can choose to even refine your hobby to that level. And let's see what it's giving us for. Okay, let us if you are having average of 20 pips stop loss. Okay, so we are having good at least we allow the market to breathe a little bit because of the stop loss to the upside. That's 20 pip stop loss. That's if we are using the 1 hour hobby. I'm looking at this because the internal structure has also given me that shift to the downside already. I've gotten this my change of character here to the downside on 1 hour. And also we have a BOS to this level here is a BOS here. So I'm having multiple confirmation already to the downside. I also love the way the market is currently giving me this correction to the upside, which is a very good one. Corrections to the upside. So that may have gotten my full confirmation. And for those of us that want to use a lower time frame entry, then we can choose to mark out the whole OB on 4 hours and wait for market reaction within this particular OB. Then take your shots on USD CHF. And for me, the target is, even though I know the market is a downtrend on that weekly time frame, I'm looking at this immediate level here. This is the level I'm currently looking at, which is here. And one of the reasons why I'm looking at it is because the wind market also move away from here on that daily time frame, which I said that this market did not really push to the downside, taking out lows. But if you can see, I can see, look at it that this market pull back to mitigate this particular OB on the daily that gave us this daily shift to the downside. The 4 hours is giving us a very good move, impulse and correction after we had this change of character on the 1 hour to the downside. So it's part of what I'm looking at for this week, expecting USD CHF to continue in its downtrend based on what we are having on the weekly time frame. Having said that, I also have Euro GPP. The name goes to Euro GPP on the weekly time frame. We've been looking at this guy for a couple of weeks now, and this afternoon I was looking at it. I felt like having a very strong bearish pin bar. There's a way I always trade. There's a strategy I trade on bearish pin bar, whereby whenever I see bearish pin bar on the weekly time frame, I want to take 50% of that bearish pin bar, then see a kind of opportunities within that particular range. That was what I applied to this particular setup I'm trying to show us now. On the daily time frame, I have a level I mark it out, which I'm expecting markets to mitigate on the Euro GBP. That's what I'm looking at. And never forget that the weekly has given me a very strong bearish pin bar. So I was now looking at this particular range where I have that my bearish pin bar. Let me go back to that weekly. So part of the condition is I will mark out my pin bar. I use this very well on the weekly bearish pin bar. So once I mark out the pin bar, then I pick out the 50% of that pin bar, the strategy that some of us can go and back test and see how it works. So this is 50%. Then I'm now looking at above that 50%, I'm looking at a very good condition, market reactions where I can take advantage of selling. So what I had there was on the 1 hour time frame after we had this particular market movement on the 1 hour. So if you can see that we've been having that down trend movement here. Then on the 1 hour time frame, I had this particular clear movements. Never forget that I'm not making this decision because of the 1 hour. I'm making it based on what the weekly bearish pin bar has given me. So on the 15 minutes, I have this OB here. And this is the 50%. This is the 50% of that my bearish pin bar, and I have this valid OB on 15 minutes at the top. So my expectation is if the market is pushing back, once market open this week and we are having that push up, that level here, by now, this is the last level of retracement of that my bearish pin bar. Should be the last level of retracement. Then I also look at So I'm looking at what is name here, liquidity zones here before this is my 15-minute OB. Because of that, I've been expecting markets to mitigate this my 15 OB, and I'm taking a short to the downside. Even though I'm having that bigger picture of where this guy should push back to, I'm only targeting just 1 to 5 on this particular movement. Even though when I'm expecting this market to pull back to this particular 4 hours will be here, just 1 to 5 of that range. I'm done. Also on Euro USD, I know we were looking at this guy last week. But this guy refused to come back to that 4 hours OB. Last week, Tuesday, I know we talked about it. And we also marked out this level here after we had that weekly shift to the downside. We had this weekly shift to the downside. And it's obvious that this market is still pushing to the downside. So on the 4 hours time frame, we are looking at market pushing back to a possible level. Though I love the way the market is currently giving us this correction. It is a very good one. Looking at it, I'll be expecting market reaction at this particular level. Even though when we still have this 4 hours, will be fine. If market gets to this particular level and I get that lower time frame entry, I'm taking a short on Euro USD. And it's very good when you have the change of character, because at the top here, you can see we have liquidity here, like a kind of equal high. So it's better for us to allow market get in, take out the early sellers or the liquidity sitting in that range before we join the sell continuation. So how we advise for Euro USD is a must. We have to wait for change of character before we take a shot on Euro USD. And for AD USD, my major move is for a buy, which is this particular level here. If you can see on the weekly time frame, we have this change of character to the upside. And the market gave us this weekly low here, which the market refused to mitigate this OB. That does not mean that the market will come back to the OB that we are seeing it. But the market will successfully create a new higher high. And now the market pushed back. We're expecting this correction back to this level here. My target is if ADS will come back to come and mitigate this particular weekly OB here. So on the daily time frame, we had a very good range. This is a swing low and this is a swing high for me on the daily time frame. Keeping in mind that we have this guy here a very long time ago, which the market refused to mitigate before pushing to the upside. So the confirmation is this low created a new higher high. That's one. Created a new higher high. So mitigating this particular level here, and the market has even given me a kind of liquidity already on that 4 hours time frame. And one of the things I'm looking at here, I'm not holding this guy to where this level we marked out. I'm only targeting this immediate high here, and that is giving about 219 pips. So if you're having 290, that's almost 300. And from here, definitely we are looking for a lower time frame entry here Now, I was also looking at it that the market can push back to this range and sell to the downside. And by the time I check, that range is within my premium price. And take note, this particular order block was the one that took out this particular low here. Mark it out. Take out this particular low here. So definitely, we may likely have a kind of market reaction within this particular range by tomorrow, or let's say New York sections tomorrow, likely have market reaction within here. So for those of us that scalp or day trade, think this level here, which is already above 50% of our Fibonacci, is a very good zone we can also watch out for when markets approach this particular hand there. So I'm already looking at it, this kind of market is building liquidity. So if the market did not come back here before tapping into this particular 4 hours OB, I will watch market very well if I'm going to get a lower time frame entry and short this guy to the downside. Never forget that the market has given us different move already. We have impulse, we have corrections. This is a good impulse. Now the market is creating that correction again. So this level here is a very good level to create another internal structure direction back to where we want to buy from. So I'll be watching ADSZ closely this week, looking at how the market is moving within this particular 4 hours range for us to take advantage of the sell movement before the real buy movement on the ADUSD. So guys, this is what I have for this week.